Hey guys, Victoria here, and welcome to the Geeky Sandbox. Today we are going to be talking about Sic Semper Systema, which is episode 4 of Daredevil Born Again. And of course, guys, if you do not want spoilers, please feel free to skip out on this video because we are going to be going through a recap of everything that has happened in this episode, and of course I'll follow it up with my theories and some Easter eggs. This episode really follows the aftermath and the fallout of what happened with Hector Ayala, and as we called it, Matt was devastated. Not only was he devastated, Angela came to the morgue and she was outraged and devastated and in tears, and it was just so hard to watch. I felt so bad. Matt is kind of being questioned, like, what are you going to do about it? You know that something isn't right about this. This isn't just some random killing. Someone killed him after his identity was out. You got him out of jail. That pissed a lot of people off. What are you going to do about it? That kind of brings in what the title of the episode means, which I guess technically would be the first Easter egg I'm throwing out there. Sic Semper Systema, which roughly translates to so always the system. And a lot of this episode is about just kind of how the system works against people, and then people are put in a position where they just kind of have to accept it, right? Nobody cares about what's happening to Hector Ayala. Nobody cares because he's from the Heights. And, you know, even regarding a client that Matt gets later on in the episode, the system was built to work against the black man. You have him going to jail for 30 days, and then while he was in jail for 30 days, he loses his SSI benefits, he loses his food stamps, which puts him in a cycle where he's kind of put in a position where he thinks the only thing he can do is steal, panhandle, just to try to get money and food from people, and, you know, in some states that's illegal. And so you just kind of have this, like, thing of the system being brought up a lot, which I'm going to talk more about that later. Matt, you know, kind of comes in, like tie up to his neck. He already knows what he's about to say. This isn't something new to him. This isn't his first rodeo. But he kind of gets schooled a little bit by Leroy. And he's just like, can you get me probation? I just need something so I'm not back in the system. And Matt was able to get his 30-day sentence cut down to 10 days, which would have been 7 days because Leroy had already been in there. But Leroy was like, that's not enough. Like, the last time I was stuck in here, my benefits were taken away from me because I wasn't able to, like, make the appointment that they wanted me to make. So it's like, you know, kind of like a never-ending cycle of not being able to get out of that, right? And Matt hears that and he feels that, especially like the helplessness of, like, what can I do? I'm in a position where there's nothing I can do. Matt can relate to that. I do wish that we had more of a conclusion with that in this episode, but I'm hoping that it comes back next episode, even as something minor, where Matt is able to do something different. But I don't know if the conversation between Matt and Leroy was supposed to indicate that he's just accepting the 10 days or the 7 days. A big chunk of the episode also goes towards Fisk and the campaign and Vanessa, which I know that some people aren't just too down with the whole, like, therapy and all that stuff, but I do feel like it's going to pan out to something bigger as we see at the end of the episode. Fisk and Vanessa are kind of unpacking things in therapy, and Heather is finally getting a sense of something's not right here. Like, there's something that they're not talking about. Obviously, they're not going to tell her all the, like, stuff they have going on, and so she tries to work with that, and she's saying, are you trying to, like, completely break down your marriage so that way you can figure out what's wrong, or are you just simply trying to save it? Like, which one are we here to do? I want you guys to be able to talk amongst yourselves and figure that out. And we do learn more about Adam, and Fisk explains why he was so upset about Adam. Vanessa explains why she was drawn to Adam, someone that didn't remind her of Fisk, someone that wasn't involved in the same business as Fisk, completely different guy, different look as well, because we do see him later on in the episode. And Vanessa kind of likened Fisk leaving to go do all the stuff he did in Echo and Hawkeye to, like, being cheated on. Like, she just felt alone and isolated. We learned about abandonment issues that she has from her youth and things like that, and we just get a little bit more of a look into Vanessa. It's interesting because later that episode we see Fisk has Adam tied up in some kind of basement somewhere. So obviously Fisk does know where Adam is, and he's either been beating the living crap out of him or he's just been starving him down there. But it's crazy to see him down there. I wouldn't say their marriage couldn't be saved, but I imagine she would be a bit more afraid that he would do something like that. But I know deep down she already knows that Fisk did something to Adam because she already warned him beforehand, don't do anything to him. So I'm curious how that's going to play out. It's because Fisk definitely can't let him go. but he also doesn't feel like he can kill him either. So this very, very interesting predicament that Fisk is in, as he again is having pasta and watching Adam scream in a cell. It's it's almost chilling, honestly. Another thing that's going on with Fisk is he's just trying to expedite everything as mayor, and as Sheila says, that that's just not the way that works. There's a system we have to follow. There is a process that we have to go through for the process, you know? That theme comes in, that episode title, Sic Semper Systema. So always a system. A lot of things happen with his staff. The biggest example is Daniel is out with BB and friends, and he accidentally reveals something that Fisk had on the calendar, and it ends up in the news. It ends up in one of her articles, and it upsets Fisk beyond repair. And Sheila, she does try to cover for Daniel, even though she did have to get on to him earlier. And she's like, look, I'm going to be here when you and Fisk are gone. I've been doing this too long. I will not let you guys mess up what the mayor office is supposed to stand for. I do feel like Sheila is a very strong presence, but I do have fear for her and her role, which I'll talk more about that later. Going off of that, you know, Fisk does find out that it's Daniel. I'm not firing you, I'm not firing Sheila, but if you do something like this again, it'll be the last thing you do, which is a threat Daniel should not take lightly. One of the funny things that happened in this episode, since I'm already talking about Fisk, is he, as mayor, goes to an elementary school. I believe it's an elementary school. He sits down and he has to listen to the kids sing. He is like really not into it, but he's like smiling and he claps so excitedly, mainly because it's over. And so he even stops the teacher. He even stops the teacher from letting them sing another song, and he gets his coat and leaves. So the city never sleeps. But the funniest thing is, once he finds out that this report is out by BB, Sheila does what she does best. She clears the calendar meetup that they had regarding some recycling things, and they go meet a different group. And Fisk doesn't want to be there, and of course the first thing they sing is "We Built This City," but in a different language, which was the funniest thing that I've seen happen in Daredevil Born Again. Going back to Matt and everything that's going on, like, he is just not able to sit with the fact that he didn't do anything or do enough for Leroy, so he starts getting back onto looking for Hector's killer, and he ends up finding the casing, and he feels the Punisher's logo on it, so he goes to look for Frank. We get to see Frank Castle in this episode. I am disappointed that it was so short-lived. I do believe Frank is going to come back towards the end of the season, maybe episode 8 or 9, but we did get a brief but very intense conversation between him and Matt Murdock. I feel like this is probably my favorite scene of the series so far. Just Frank telling him, like, you don't have to pretend with me. I know what that pain looks like. I know what not being able to sleep at night looks like. You can be real with me, but right now you're not being real with yourself. You just let Bullseye walk away and Foggy is dead, which obviously like just triggers something in Matt. And Matt's just like, but he has life in prison. I'm letting the system deal with it. And Frank is like, the system, like what it is with you, it's always a system. So always a system, everybody. But I just love the way that they tied that into this episode so well, and it's perfectly demonstrated here, right? Like, Frank works outside of the system. He works outside of the law because he's seen, even as ex-military, that some stuff doesn't get done, which is the same reason Matt took up being Daredevil. There are just some things that doesn't work through the law process or whatever, right? And so it kind of lights a fire under Matt's ass. Like, there's tears, there's like hurt, and he can't even say Foggy's name, right? And I think that that's like powerful, and it's telling as to where he is right now. He still hasn't forgiven himself. He still feels like he wasn't able to help Hector. He was not able to help Leroy. He is not even able to help himself feel good about what's happened. We're getting to the point in the story for Daredevil Born Again where Matt has to be completely broken before he can be born again, right? And that worries me for the next episode, because we do see at the end of this episode he does put on the suit and he's testing out his weapons, and we see all the cowls and things like that. He's getting his feet wet again, but I am worried about what's going to happen and what follows that. We see Muse, they're carrying someone over their shoulder, and then later we see Muse draining their blood while they are alive, which is Muse's MO. So let's talk a little bit about some of the theories that we have here. So I do believe that despite everything, this is a smaller theory, that Daniel is going to somehow get Sheila fired. I don't know at what episode that comes in. I don't know what that that's gonna look like, but I am afraid for Sheila in her role because she is the only thing standing between Daniel and like the obvious fanboy admiration he has for Fisk. Like Heather's gonna get a bit too involved with what's going on with Vanessa and Fisk. I don't know if Vanessa would go back to her because it's a safe space. If Vanessa would go there alone, I'm not sure, but I am worried about how Heather may be getting herself into some deeper trouble here, especially if Fisk finds out that she's connected to Matt. Moving on to Easter eggs, Muse is probably going to be one of the most sadistic villains in the MCU. Whenever they do villain rankings for Marvel villains, he's usually up there next to Gore the God Butcher, Thanos, just some of the big bads, right? And it's primarily because Muse drains the blood out of his conscious victims. As we saw, like I said at the very end of the episode, the guy wakes up on the table and Muse is already draining his blood as he's alive, and that makes me cringe my whole body. We've seen the side-by-side comic book versus live action comparisons a billion times at this point, but we do get to see just that comic book accuracy real time in the episode. We've got the blood coming out of the eyes, just sort of bleeding onto the mask and everything. As many of us have guessed, Muse is definitely getting ready for the blood mural. This is going to bring a lot more trouble for Matt, obviously. We have our first mention of the scrolls within Daredevil Born Again. That just definitely indicates that there may be a bigger problem that's brewing with the scrolls, or something that is still happening with the scrolls. The bloody wall. So in the scene when we find out that Fisk has Adam being held hostage in the dungeon thing, we see a bloody wall, and it's like Fisk is leaving that there to remind himself of the better times almost, because that is the bloody wall where Matt and Fisk fought in Daredevil season 3. But yes guys, that's all I have for you. I'm gonna try to get this edited down so I can get it up on the channel. There is a lot of talking, obviously, so thank you guys for sticking with me to this point in the video. If you're still here, give yourself a pat on the back. That's it for me. But yes guys, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like rating down below, and if you're new around here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can get more videos like this. And until next time, I'll see you guys later for episode 5. I'm really excited. Bye.